into it. All right, so we the ministry, Jerusalem ministry, and we here to talk about the cleansing of the temple that what the world knows as Jesus or Yeshua or Yeshua. He actually went into the temple and was cleansing it from the money changers and from the chief and the high chief priests and the scribes, and how he was cleansing the temple. But in reality, the original truth of it, according to the Jewish Christians, that he was cleansing this temple. He was cleansing this temple from sacrifices. All right. So now let's get back into this. Let's get into it. So I'm gonna just make this big real quick. All right, bro. Can you just read Mark 11, chapter 15, verse 11 through 19 for me again?
All right, Mark chapter 11, verse 15. And they come to Jerusalem, and Jesus went into the temple and began to cast out them that sold and bought in the temple, and overthrew the tables of the money changers and the seats of them that sold doves, and would not suffer that any man should carry any vessel through the temple. And he taught, saying unto them, Is it not written, My house shall be called of all nations the house of prayer, but ye have made it a den of thieves? And the scribes and the chief priests heard it, and sought how they might destroy him, for they feared him, because all the people was astonished at his doctrine. And when even was come, he went out of the city.
So, okay, based off this, we can see, based off this version of Mark, based off this Greco version of Mark, because it was an older Mark that this Greek author used to compile his Mark. And with this Mark, we see that this story of cleansing the temple has been condensed. It has been condensed into just dealing with the money changers, and making it seem like is specifically speaking about money. Even when you look into the concordance of this Greek word right here, thieves, it makes it seem like it's dealing with a robber or a thief. But it's coming from a Hebrew word that's actually meaning actually more, which we're going to go into in just a second. But so as we can see right here, as in this Greco-Roman version of Mark, that they condensed it based off dealing with the cleansing of the temple. He's taking people, he's pushing, people, the money corruption that's going on within the temple. But it's more than just money corruption. It's more than just money corruption. Like, this doctrine that's astonishing to everybody is actually dealing with the doctrine of no sacrificing. That same doctrine is the doctrine that got the Essenes, they wasn't allowed to be in the temple anymore. They wasn't allowed to be there. All right. So what doctrine is being preached right here? According to Josephus, the Essenes, they wasn't allowed to go into the temple anymore, because they said they had a better sacrifice instead of sacrificing animals. All right. So what is this doctrine that got everybody? Is the doctrine because people saying these people are being corrupt with money? I don't think that's the doctrine. I don't think that's what's astonishing people. What's astonishing people is and the seats of them that sold doves. So you got these people, he overthrowing these people who's selling animals. All right, he's overthrowing them. Now, in this condensed version, it doesn't really elaborate like that. All right, but we're going to show how it's actually more to the story. All right, so now, before we actually go to Jeremiah, from who he actually is quoting from, to get a full understanding of why the Messiah is quoting from Jeremiah, is quoting from that specific prophet in that specific circumstance. All right, so now, but let's go to Matthew real quick. So we're going to go to Matthew. We're going to go to chapter 21. And let's read. Can you read verse 12 through 17 for me, bro?
Matthew chapter 21, verses 12 through 17. And Yeshua went into the temple of the Most High and cast out all them that sold and bought in the temple, and overthrew the tables of the money changers and the seats of them that sold doves, and said unto them, It is written, My house shall be called the house of prayer, but ye have made it a den of thieves. And the blind and the lame came to him in the temple, and he healed them. And when the chief priests and scribes saw the wonderful things that he did, and the children crying in the temple and saying, Hosanna, the son of David, they were sore displeased, and said unto him, Hearest thou what these say? And Yeshua saith unto them, Yea, have ye never read, out of the mouth of babes and sucklings thou hast perfected praise? And he left them and went out of the city into Bethania, and he lodged there.
Okay, now in Matthew, in this version of Matthew, which this Greco version of Matthew is using portions of Mark. All right. And how do we know that? I'm gonna show you because it's elaborating a little more than what Mark just did, but it got some stuff in there that Mark don't have in there. It actually talk about how he some blind and some lame came into the temple and he healed them, and then that made the chief priests and scribes, was mad by seeing the wonderful things that he was doing. That what made them mad. In Mark version, what made them mad, sought to get him, was the doctrine that he was preaching. Let me go back real quick to be precise. So it was saying that it was that no man should carry any vessel through the temple. So he won't allowing people to carry things to the temple. And he called it the house of the den of thieves, and the scribes and the priests, they heard what he said and they thought, how to destroy him according to Mark. This version of Mark is because it's what he was saying, whatever he was preaching and what he was saying. But based on what he was saying and what they heard, they wanted to destroy him. Now in Matthew, this version is saying that, based off the wonderful things that he was doing in the temple, and people crying out saying, "Oh, Hosanna, son of David, son of David," that they was displeased, and they didn't like, they was displeased with him. They ain't saying nothing about them trying to kill him, and they were just displeased with him. All right, but that's this version right here. All right, so now let's go to the next one. Let's go to Luke real quick. Let's go to Luke. But it's making it seem like he was throwing these people out of the temple based off dealing with the corruption of currency. But it's deeper because the corruption of currency. It stems from something greater, which is dealing with sacrifices, the institution of sacrifices. All right, so now let's go to Luke chapter 19. And can you read verse 45 through 48 for me, bro?
All right. Luke 19 and 45. And he went into the temple and began to cast out them that sold therein and them that bought, saying unto them, It is written, My house is the house of prayer, but ye have made it a den of thieves. And he taught daily in the temple, but the chief priests and the scribes and the chief of the people sought to destroy him, and could not find what they might do, for all the people were very attentive to hear him.
So all the people was very attentive. They wanted to hear what he was talking about within the temple, what was going on in there. So, but on this one, Luke, in this version, in this Greco-Roman version, this Luke don't even record certain things that Matthew put in there, but he still got the same kind of storyline as was in Mark. And you can see that he used some type of Mark's sequence, and he also used, this, and Matthew used that same sequence. All right. But in Matthew, he added some other things in there that Luke doesn't have in there. And Luke shortened some things in there. He took some things out. His version is very short. All right. So, but what we get from it, it just think, oh, it's because people selling and buying up in the temple, selling and buying in the temple. I don't think that was. I'm not sure that was lawful or unlawful to do. But that's when I think it's something more. It's something greater than that. Now, if this was the Sabbath, I don't believe this was the Sabbath. So I don't think it's nothing unlawful to sell or buy within the temple, however the temple is set up. But they making it seem that the reason is because it's something to do with corruption of things being sold and money. But what's being sold? What corruption is being sold in there? What corruption is being sold in there to the point that he really, according to Mark and Matthew, he released the doves. So now let's go to John. Go to John real quick. So we're gonna go to John chapter 2. And John, his in a whole different sequence. John is in a whole different sequence. All right. It's in chapter 2 of John. And it's after the wedding. It's after a wedding. He goes into they mention the cleansing of the temple. So let's check this out. This is John chapter 2, verse 13. Can you read verse 13 through 17 for me? 13 through 17. Mhm.
John chapter 2, verse 13. And the Jews' Passover was at hand, and Yeshua went up to Jerusalem
So this say during
and
the
found.
Passover. It don't even say that during the. So we not even scholars not even sure if John even used Mark. It's a whole different sequence. Maybe he did, but he's not using the same sequence. He has a different sequence. He has a different chronology of things. He has stories in there that's not even being told that Matthew and Luke don't have, and that Mark don't even have. But let's keep going, bro. So this is our they say according to John, this is our Passover.
Verse 14. And found in the temple those that sold oxen and sheep and doves, and the changers of money sitters.
So
Money sitting.
so now in John version, in this Greco-Roman of John version, because the original John they say like the signs gospel, but then the redaction of it added some more things into it to what we know as today. The different redactions added into it, it brings us to what we know today as the Gospel of John. But in this one, in this Gospel of John, you see he even mentioned the oxen, the sheep, the dove, and then he's to mention the changes of the money. All right. So what was the original story of him going into the temple? All right. So so if you read it all, you can kind of get the Jewish Christian understanding from it, which we're going to talk about. But keep going, bro. Verse 15.
And when he had made a scourge of small cords, he drove them all out of the temple, and the sheep and the oxen, and poured out the changers' money, and overthrew the tables,
So
and
he
said
he
unto.
he let the animals go. He let the animals go, not just the doves. And here and John don't mention the doves. He driving the doves out, but we know the doves there based on verse 14, and we know the doves is there based off Mark and Matthew. So he's letting doves, but why Mark don't record the sheep? Why Mark don't record the oxen? Why? Keep going, bro. Verse 16.
And said unto them that sold doves, take these things hence, make not my father's house an house of merchandise.
Don't take this. You don't basically you don't need to be selling these animals. We don't need to be sacrificing. Because what's the only reason they selling doves for? For sacrifices. Said, take these hence. Make not my father's house of merchandise. Nate, don't make my father's house of you selling animals in, because that wasn't never the law. Anyway, sacrifices wasn't never given to Moses on the mountain. So according to the Jewish Christian understanding. People might hear this and say, "What you mean? We see that in Exodus." But according to Exodus that the Jewish Christians had, that you can read through it in the recognitions of Clement, that Moses wasn't given sacrifices to give down to the people. All right, so now,
Hey,
uh-huh,
I got something I want to say real quick too, because
mm-hmm,
just like you said, certain things you can read in Exodus about sacrifices, right? Now, regardless of how sacrifices became a thing in ancient Israel, regardless how it was instituted or who instituted it, whether it was the Most High or, somebody that was off, you know what I'm saying? One thing we know for sure is that Christ came, according to John 2 and 16, and did away with the sacrifices, which was called the merchandise, pretty much, those animals. Now, the crazy thing is, once again, going back to the Old Testament, according to what we can read, not what the Jewish Christians had, but what we can read. Hold on one second. I'm sorry.
mm-hmm.
In the Old Testament, hold on one second. Somebody calling me. It's actually lawful to sell sacrifices in the temple. That was one of the things that would be considered lawful. So why is it that Christ is saying that the people that's selling these sacrifices in the temple are turning his father's house into a den of thieves or a house of merchandise, showing you that that was something that was never from the beginning, and Christ came to correct it. That's it.
No, right on, right on. Read verse 17.
My bad. Somebody keep calling. It says, and his disciples remembered that it was written, the zeal of thine house have eaten me up.
The zeal of that house had eaten the zeal of these scribes and these chief priests, their zeal to keep sacrifices there when some of them actually knew that it wasn't originally there. But since it was there already before their time, they still kept it there. The zeal of that house have eaten me up. It's eating people getting fat. They getting fat off sacrifices. They getting fat off sacrifices. It's eating the Most High. It's eating his house up. It's eating this up. They running through it. You know. Let's let's keep going. Well, we got 1 minute left. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna come back and we're gonna go into Jeremiah. Because this is where turn my house into a merchandise, turn my house into a den of thieves, turn my where is he it is written, where is it written at? It's written in Jeremiah. It's written in Jeremiah. So he's gonna talk about it in the book of Jeremiah. Why is the Messiah quoting Jeremiah? And what is Jeremiah chapter 7, which is he's quoting? What is it talking about? What is Jeremiah chapter 7 talking about? That's what we're gonna go into. So, and get the full understanding of why the Messiah quoted that in the temple. Why he quoted that in the temple. All right. So let's get it. I think we got 1 minute left. Let me stop this.